Welcome to this webinar on zero-based planning and how we can use zero-based planning to enable a successful COVID-19 traffic resumption in airports. And hopefully that resumption is not too far out. Fingers crossed, 3-4 months, and we'll see a lot of planes in the sky again. So to begin with, how old would you be if you don't know how old you are? A rhetorical question for sure. If we translate that into the airport operation, what we're trying to get at here is how would you plan your airport if you don't know anything about past operations? I think that's really the key golden nugget that COVID-19 has brought to airports is you can actually reset and start over. So from this webinar, we're going to look at what COVID-19 is bringing. So COVID-19 has brought new traffic patterns. I don't think we've seen anywhere close to the current volatility in traffic schedules. There's a massive pressure on OPEX. There is a low or no CAPEX budget, and there is really this need to regain the trust from the passengers. So we really need to optimize to secure the benefit realization. So the takeaways from this webinar today is 4 examples where we apply zero-based planning to the airport operation. Through that, what you're going to get at the end of this is a do-it-yourself guide where you can look at how to do zero-based planning in your airport. So where does zero-based planning come from? So we start with the inspiration from zero-based budgeting, which is really a finance thing. The process of zero-based budgeting starts from a zero base, and every function within an organization is analyzed for its needs and costs. So that really means every year you do your budget, you do it all over. So if we look at that in the airport context, it's really about starting from that zero base and then going through every operational area to plan the airport in a data-driven, objective way in line with best practice. Now, you're up against history, even though we would like not to. So, examples. We've always used a throughput of 150 passengers an hour. We're using 8 different Excel documents with so many details it cannot be replicated. A typical airline statement: I'm the largest airline at this airport, and I need this area, no matter your analysis. Or I want check-in counters 110, 11, 12, and 13 because they're close to my office. So these are some of the challenges that you need to overcome when rolling out zero-based planning. So 4 elements that we'll go through in this webinar. 1, the methodology and the solution you're using. 2, the input parameters. 3, the responsibility. And 4, the planning frequency. So for each of those, we'll give a short example and demonstrate what zero-based planning means in real life. Those examples are done in our software solution Better Airport, where we're showing with examples from the software platform how it's going to change to the better. So the first element, methodology and solution. 3 key elements here, or kind of typical elements. Excel. Excel is used a lot as a methodology. Excel can do a lot of good, but when we look at it in an airport planning context, it's lacking robustness, it's lacking scalability, and it's just inherently difficult to share Excel documents. Then you can have legacy systems. They do plans, but they may not reflect reality because reality has changed since that system has been updated. And then you have a best practice solution, which is really in line with the current operation. So the showcase we're going to look at here is a generation of a lane opening plan for security. And the first example we're going to look at is a typical Excel-based model of doing it, where you divide with throughput and round up on a per interval basis when you create your lane opening plan. The other example is a best practice solution, using a mathematical algorithm and really optimizing in line with the wait time targets. So first element here, the typical Excel-based model, what you see in the morning around 6 o'clock is you have a clear peak in your traffic. That's the red line with passengers. The gray bars indicate how many lanes to open, and as kind of indirectly through this Excel-based modeling with the division and then a rounding up actually means you're planning with no wait time. So you can see you're generating a quite steep peak in the morning to meet this passenger forecast or passenger presentation. Now, what I've done now is switch to an example where we're looking at a mathematically optimized way of opening. So the gray dotted line now is the number of lanes that you were opening before. The blue bars indicate what you're opening if you're doing it in line with your wait time target. So what you can see is we have significant peak shaving. And yes, we will drive some wait time in the peak period, but it's in line with our targets, and hence we can actually save 3 lanes. So that's a significant cost saving on staff, and we're not going to violate any of our service level targets. Second element, input parameters. So as we typically say, if you have inaccurate input parameters, we could have the best solution in the world. It's still going to give you an inaccurate plan. So 3 maturity levels. You have a low maturity. That's more based on experience. It's not updated very often. There can be multiple gaps. Then you have a medium maturity where you're starting to drive some through the data. Some is automated. The gaps are fewer, but they're still there. And then you have a high maturity where you're really going with frequent updates, evaluated on a daily basis, and no gaps. So a showcase here is check and counter opening profiles. So here we could have a simple rule of thumb allocation, which is really one where, well, airline X will get 4 counters, airline Y will get 6 counters, because that's how we've done it. The other element here is then a methodology based on input parameters on the transaction time per passenger, the passenger presentation profile, and then optimized again against the mathematical algorithm. So if we look at this, this is showing a typical Gantt chart for counters. We have counters along the left axis and then across time of day across the horizontal axis. And we can see several different check-in areas. One common use area is the blue one called Ryanair, and then we have 5 flights checking in, all getting 4 counters based on a number of seats. If we then apply here actually how passengers arrive, the time they take to process, we can see that reality is the need for counters is significantly less than what is allocated. So for the Ryanair example, yes, there will be times over the day where Ryanair is not in need of 10 counters. We can also see it from the 5 specific airlines. Well, some of them like Aeroflot, well, they will need all 4 counters at some point during the check-in, whereas the El Al flight, or as circled here, the Welling flight, they actually only need 2 counters on this day, maybe because their load is only 40% or 50%. The rest is now shaded, indicating this is what we allocated against what is actually required. Again, significant room for improvement. Then we look at responsibility. So responsibilities, 3 types. It can be unclear, that's the worst kind. It can be split. If it's clearly split and it makes sense, it can work. Or it can be unambiguous. That's really what we prefer, one stakeholder being the responsible one. So if we take a look here at a baggage makeup allocation, this could be between dedicated areas per handler, a typical kind of, this is for you, this is for me, or common shared between handlers. Again, now we're doing a little bit of a split on the responsibility, but we're doing it to optimize. So again, we have the Gantt chart style allocation chart. We can see we have handler 1 is the blue shapes, and we have handler 2 have the greenish shapes. And we can see, well, they're taking up these laterals and taking up all the capacity. Now, what could happen is, well, we can actually free up the 2 first laterals, lateral 21 and 22, if we allow them, the 2 handlers, to share laterals 27 and 28. What we have in this example is we can see it's specific time frame where you can easily switch from one handler to the other. Then it works. Where it can become complicated is if there are too many shifts between handling agents over the day, or they're suddenly at some point not having enough time to switch between them. But in this case, clear room for optimization once again. Then we have the planning frequency. So you can have seasonal. So I think seasonal is, for the next coming years, going to be a thing of the past, because nobody right now can look more than 4 weeks ahead. And who knows when we can trust traffic schedules 4, 6, 9 months into the future. Then it's weekly. Problem with weekly is you're not capturing the latest changes. And there are many late changes right now with airlines really optimizing their schedules, but also government regulation and anything that will most likely continue for quite a while. And then you have the real-time best practice where you're updating every time you get a new data point. So let's look at a case where we're generating lane opening plans for immigration. So one example is a static paper-based plan, which is not updated. And the other one is a best practice solution updated in real time as more information comes in. So this could be a static plan example where you print it off in the morning, you're scripting down, you can see, okay, I've just noted that SK925 is early. I have some free resources. Let me consider doing some training. I have indication that I'll have some late flights around the midday peak, and I better inform the airport because I'm running out of staff for the evening peak. That's going to be quite messy and not updated in a good way. Now, if we then look at it in the best practice solution way, we can see now here, again, to the left, we have the lane opening plan. So the bars indicates the lane is to open. The red line indicates the forecasted passenger flow. And I can see in the middle is really where I have the flights. So I can see a couple of Ryanair flights, an El Al flight, and a Middle Eastern flight coming in. What could then happen is that I could have a delay in my Ryanair flight. So now what I can see is, well, the Ryanair flight that was supposed to have passengers arriving around 12:15, well, has been delayed, and now they arrive together with the other Ryanair flight. If I do not do anything, I can see that my wait time will increase, and I'll get upwards of 20 minutes of wait time. So I better change my plan. Now I updated my plans. I can see that I should open lanes a little later, but I should open one additional lane to make sure I can cope with the traffic which is hitting me. Now, this is updated all the time. So really automatically updating this, showing the user what to do differently. So how do we make this actually a success? Because again, we could have the best system in the world. If we cannot get collaboration, if we cannot get people to work with us, it's going to be a tough sell. So we need to look at the different stakeholders we have in our airport, their criticality and their willingness to make a change. So in this case, we have a government security agency. They're critical to make a change happen. They may not be that willing. So how can we influence them? So the airport operator may influence them to say, look, we really need to do things in a different way. And assuming that government security agency has a third-party staff provider, well, they can do that influence. So the third-party staff provider may be of less criticality because they can be influenced a lot by this government agency. So again, change management and understanding the stakeholder flows is going to be key. So summing it all up, this is the DIY guide to how to conduct zero-based planning. So first, assess the current methodology. So really look at, for each operational area, how are you doing your planning? Then map your data and assess the input parameter maturity. And again, anything can work. It's just important to know, is this top of class? Is it middle? Or is it actually a low maturity? But it's better than nothing. Then outline the responsibilities of each operational area. So who is responsible for which functions? And then verify your planning frequency. Are you planning with the right frequency? And I think what we're seeing right now with the resumption starting up and really not getting very far right now with the various regulations, I think that will continue for quite a while. So there really is a need to plan very frequently. So look at the improvement options. Are we talking financial? Are we talking operational? And what is the change impact going to be? So example of some improvement options: best practice planning solution, an automated passenger tracking solution where you know where passengers are moving in your airport, better cooperation with the handling agents, or a move to really daily planning to capture all the latest changes and make sure you have a fully updated, well-functioning plan. So that was what we had for you on zero-based planning. Thanks for joining, and thank you for the attention. Sure.